Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with Third Reich Events, the preview version installed. Okay, on that sort of note, I'm going to fire an event. What I did is, before I started this episode, and I was sort of waiting for it to happen, and it didn't happen. When Japan joined the Axis, we can now of course see Japan here. They've lost Korea. So it looks like they're getting ready for an invasion, reinvasion of Pusan. Yeah, okay. And they're not as bright as MacArthur and come up to and land up over here in Seoul. But either way, it's supposed to fire if you've done if you've had the anti-Comintern Pact. Well, when we did the national focus for it, it didn't have the flag set like it does now. So I fired that. Keep pulling this off manually here. So again, I haven't done the description here. For it only costs 3 political power points to have the anti-Comintern Pact start and work Japan down the Axis path. But, and since I didn't, and it requires that flag to have been set for Germany, and it hasn't been. So I'm going to fire this manually here. Okay, so now that, and this should fire the Tripartite Pact only if you already have the Pact of Steel, which has Italy in faction with Germany, and if you've gone down the anti-Comintern Pact with Japan. You have a choice not to do so earlier on, but if you go down that path, you will either at the historical date, or if it's earlier, and they're in the faction, when they come into a faction, you will have Japan join. Now, there's a key term in there, Tripartite Pact, meaning 3 of them. So you can't get this effect if you don't have Italy. So if you were planning on invading and conquering Italy, but because you wanted to, let's say, own all of Europe, but you wanted your Japan because you weren't going to try to do a world conquest or whatever, you wanted Japan to be your faction member, they still can be your faction member. That is most assuredly still can do all that. But you don't get the bonus of having the Tripartite Pact, is all 3 of them are working in concert. And they definitely helped each other. Now they hurt each other. I think that's the Japanese ambassador there, and I think that's the one that I'm talking about, because there were a couple during this time period. Forget his name right offhand. I got his face pictured in my mind. Was a good friend of Ribbentrop. Got to know Hitler well. He had been the military attaché for Japan to Germany for a considerable time before he became ambassador. But he ended up being one of the best sources for information for the Allies on Hitler's intentions. Not because, and he died never knowing that, because the purple code or whatever the Japanese were using at the time, I think it's that, we had cracked, the US had cracked. So whenever the Japanese ambassador gave information sent back to Japan, the US was reading it. So when he would say, oh, Germany plans to invade Hungary or whatever it might be, because he wasn't giving, well, he might have been giving some of the stuff like the Battle at Kursk and whatever, but he wasn't giving, detailed plans in these diplomatic communications. But what he was for general intentions and ideas and plans to reinforce whatever fronts or whatever. The U.S. particularly was reading the code of it because he was informing Japan. But there was a lot of other cooperation, not as much as there could have been. Italy's factories, they weren't as, some of them at least, or whatever, there weren't as many big ones, or however you want to say it, as scale to produce on the scale of Germany's was. But they were quite capable of building a Panzer IV tank. It's just the Italian Alessandro Fiat wanted to design its own tank, and so they pushed back, against Mussolini and some of the aircraft manufacturers. They wanted to design their own stuff and produce their own stuff instead of just making local copies. Now, I'm not talking about assembly work. They did assembly work. I think it was it 200 or 400 Stuka dive bombers were assembled in Italy for Italian use. That the parts were sent over, so a lot of the work is putting the aircraft together. So that they were sent down there, and so the Italians used the Stukas. But all those were the pieces were all manufactured in Germany, and they were assembled in Italy, if I have that right. Which is different than an Italian manufacturing making all the the components to the aircraft. So they pushed back on it, and so there could have been more, if you will, tech sharing in that sense, cooperation, but there was still a fair amount of it going on. So, and with Japan and Italy, there were a lot of spies operating in the U.S. and other places, while like at this stage everybody's at peace, or when the tripartite pact that actually was signed, quite hadn't yet broken out into a total world war. So, when, especially if you just look at the anti-Comintern pact element of it, sort of, there is, we can say signing the tripartite pact is when they became, faction members, but you could also go back and do, whether it's the Pact of Steel, or the Rome-Berlin Axis, or the anti-Comintern pact. They were all gradually developing an alliance and sharing information. And so when you get a situation where Japan is still at war with the Western Allies, Japanese shipping can move around the world, picking up some critical resources, and, I don't know, shipping them to a place like Greece or Yugoslavia, which would be at peace, and then shipping them on into other Axis nations. And they did some of that, but that's not enough to be 8 factories, or eight count worth for one factory. But it's a minor bonus, that kind of stuff, and they did a lot of that kind of trade sort of covertly at this time. So again, this is the version here that fired, which I fired manually, but fires when they're all three are in the tripart, or all 3 faction members. So you fire this, and there should be, but I guess it didn't quite work. I'm going to pause the game here and take a quick look at it, because I'm still testing this, as you well know. So if you're watching this a year from now and the mod is released, okay, they should, I'm looking, hope you're hearing all this. 92. Fire it. I see the problem here. I see the problem. A code problem. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pause the episode, redo some of this and restart here. I see the bug in the code here, and I'm going to fix it right now. Like I say, if you're watching this a year from now and the mod is released, these have all been long fixed and taken care of. So please excuse bugs and other things in these early stages of things. Be back in a second. Alright, I'm back. Through the magic of television, as they used to say. Okay, so what I've done is I've changed the code. I think I've moved the files into the right spot again. This is the picture of them signing the tripartite pact. That's the Japanese embassy in Berlin, and that's a Japanese made pen from the time period. You can tell it is Japanese, maybe partially by the funny colors for Italy, but they never look at a bunch of them. They often mess up the Italian flag. But Japan is the central flag in it. You can sort of, because they were made in each of the countries, various, those are civilian pins, or, people to wear, not a military uniform thing. You can sort of always tell the country that it was made in by which is the central flag of it. And that's the one I found when I was making this. So now hopefully this time, yes, it worked right. Last time it fired the flag for Japan. The Japanese player, the AI currently coded for it, and I say currently because again, I was talking about earlier, things very well may change before release, or whatever, but currently coded that we've removed the 3% there. May change before release, but currently coded so that the AI always accepts. Now this maybe shouldn't have the ability to back out, because this version that we went through fires only after they're a member of the faction. But if they weren't already a member in the faction, they would still have a chance to back out of it. And so there we go. And now we have here the tripartite. Again, I haven't made the little coding to show what it is, but it shows that now you have a 2% political power gain. Research time is reduced by 3%, and resource gain efficiency up by 5%. So we now have that going for us. And now that we've signed the tripartite pact, and I have it done coded simply, and this is sort of why I wanted to make sure I got all this done right and fired it manually. I prefer that version of the map. Is because some of these other ones now, once other nations that had signed the tripartite pact, this is the signing for Bulgaria, there's the Bulgarian, there's that Japanese ambassador I was talking about, that's the Bulgarian, what is this, foreign minister here, oh, prime minister of Bulgaria, and Ribbentrop, they're signing it. Once this is, unlike some of the others, these don't happen on the historical dates, they just happen, and they don't force to join, but it's once they become a member of the Axis. Now these won't happen if you don't have the tripartite pact. So if you build, the idea is whether you're all at war or not, you're trying to coordinate and work together. Some may be at peace, some may be at war. Depends on how you want to fight things, but you're all trying to trade, work, and everything a little bit better. So if you get the three big powers in the Axis, they have the right flags, these other nations will get that same sort of bonus to themselves. So 2% of research speed reduced for Bulgaria isn't going to affect Bulgaria much, obviously, and whatever. So it's not a war-winning solution for any one of these nations on its own. And then of course here, though sometimes I have a little bit of historical information there. Again, this just fires, because we're not yet at November 1940. Once they're in the Axis officially, Ribbentrop, Count Ciano, and this is, yeah, Foreign Minister for Hungary. The Kingdom of Hungary is signing that. So since they're both in there. So that just sort of shows you how I'm working with things, coding it up to be, okay, we need support equipment. Looks like, I mean, we need everything, but that's also, next one will be for trucks. Now that we're getting ready to go to war soon, we're getting war with France soon, we're going to change from Wilhelm Keitel, who's a good, within this thing, I don't know if he's historically a good training general. He keeps reduced by 10%, which is a significant reduction. I think we're going to go for divisional speed improvement by 10%. So we're going to go Brauhitsch. Should help that. Already got the war economy. Sort of don't want to put too many factories in some of these coastal ports, because maybe I want to do shipyards. It's just a thought I have, generally speaking. So just flood a few of those in there. And convert it over to IG Farben for so we're not doing too much resource or industrial research until 41, but I'm gonna, in another slot, comes do some of the chemical synthetic fuel research to help that out. And since we are also we're still going to be training, but we are, well, we're going to wait till low manpower shows up before we go to service by requirement, because that will not hurt our factory output or construction speed. Until we get to low manpower warnings. How's our tank production doing, our medium tanks? Okay, well, we'll do some more of that. And currently, we've got over 1,000 light tanks. So what we're going to do here is, let's convert these over to light tank destroyer production. Well, this is an interesting thing that's happened, I'm just noticing here, is Poland has lost its ports. So its 3 submarines are sitting out here with no port. How interesting. Okay, war with France. We now have that as a... I like this better as an available war goal so that I can, you know, if I wasn't, you know, if I, oh, I need to send my fleets out to, you know, my sub-fleets out to sea or some such thing, which I very well might have, and I've forgotten that kind of stuff in the past. I like that, so the exact timing can be on my terms. Let's go with a tactical air effort. And since I do sort of kind of think that we're ready for this, because right now they're in alliance with Poland, so that'll give us our war with Poland and Britain and everybody else. So okay, so now we are at war. Now, what I have to do, and which could have been done before, of course, is to how did I go over to? Oh, we're still in the diplomatic. There we go, air regions. That's what I was looking for. Trying out sort of this strategy, if you will, of a lot of smaller units instead of a few big units. Obviously, it requires a bit more of assignments here, but Eastern Germany. Make sure we deal with any Polish bombers coming in. just like, well, both of you are going out there, so. Yeah, both of you are going to be out. The North Sea. I just want to select one of you here. There we go. Now that's all for operating now for that. So, well, see, I just don't know how much strategic bombing I want to do. I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to run them over before I plan on really doing strategic bombing. I would just rather just get, or before they can build too much equipment. Okay, so naval strike, naval strike. Go after fighters, go after bombers, and naval strike. Depending on where they're based, different coverage effects. Okay, and bombers, air, naval, bombers. Okay, now. They're going in there. Select all of the core. Go there. Motorized divisions. Now this is sort of smart here because maybe they'll lose a factory once if they lose that there, but I don't know that there's any factories there, but trying to defend actually any of these provinces is sort of useless, but they're at least reducing their manpower output somewhat. instead of trying to hold every single border province. And of course, it might have been smart to fill that province up, of course. So yeah, see here, if they had held these two provinces here, you could have shifted this division to there to make their divisions, as well as this hole here. Okay, well, since we have a hole here, let's send our panzers this way. Okay, and we're facing out here. Okay, and we're getting for Duncan. I hope we're getting that pretty close. This is a period German poster that they were putting up, because you see the little bit of light there. It's the enemy sees your light darken. Put them up around the cities to stop bombing. We get a national unity hit, theoretically based on the idea that we're being bombed. At least a little bit once the war starts. And we have wolf packs. Okay, now we have that. Let's go with improved infantry equipment there. And now, because they weren't there at first, but now we also have the naval bombers. So we're battling them. Okay, and let's smash into here. Now let's see you guys there in this. So the core's going that way. And they're already here. Wow. Okay, they're moving fast. So concentration of effort, but not everybody hitting the same spot. Support that attack. Let's slow the clock down. That's warmed up yet. Oh, yeah, we're moving the clock way too fast. Okay, let's see. Wants to send an expeditionary force. Okay, we'll accept that. No, we're not going to accept those volunteers. Panzers are trapped. I mean, they're not really trapped, but we'll re-establish a path of advance. Oh good, we formed a nice little pocket here. Actually two of them, but either way. Okay, there we go. Now we have a connective force. I'm going to keep that here for a moment. Yeah, we're going to spread out force since there aren't any opposition right here. Now, how's this doing here? Looks like we're holding the front just fine here. Okay, we're going to end this episode here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking the video. Please post questions, comments, suggestions, and of course, if you can, tell your friends. Just go shout it on the internet somewhere. I don't know, that how great this channel is, and that everyone needs to watch it. Thanks so much. See you next time.